Hey friends, welcome to this week's Diverse Orange. My guest today is Mär Martinez. Hey Mär.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going. Mär is a local artist. She's currently an artist in residence at the Maitland Art and History Museum. She is also our 2019 Visual Arts winner. And so we're going to kind of talk about her heritage. So you are of Syrian and Cuban descent. Which is which with your parents?
So my dad immigrated here from Cuba, and my mom, her heritage she's Syrian. So her family came over, and her sisters were born over there, and she was born here.
Nice. And so your parents both met in the U.S.
Yeah, New York, baby. Someone hooked up on a blind date, which I think is quite cute.
Oh, nice. I think that's a really cool and interesting mix and fusion of cultures and heritages. And so your family migrated around the U.S. too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they spent the majority of their lives in New York, and then we were relocated to New Mexico, and then there was a bit of like a back and forth action for a while, but now we're mostly centered in Florida.
And what made you guys move to Florida?
I think even though like the desert is beautiful and like living in New Mexico, it's such a gorgeous and unique experience, and it's one of my favorite places in the world. I think my family was just ready for a bit of a change, and some of the economic opportunity in Florida was a bit more promising at the time. So that's kind of why we shifted over here. And the majority of my family that does live in the U.S., they either live in New York or they live in Boca. So we're a little bit closer to them. And, you mentioned that it's an interesting mix being Syrian and Cuban. And it's definitely like wildly different cultures, but there's core values that I think are the same. And that's kind of why we were able to like mesh. There's an emphasis on like family structure. It's almost like more of a tribal structure than an individualistic one that you see with more of like a nuclear family. Like there's an emphasis on your community, your getting together over food, like all of that is extremely important. And I think that's kind of why we were able to fuse.
Yes, we love a sense of community and family, even outside of our family, but through cultures. So when you guys came here, was there what was it like for you in general, just like growing up and being mixed? Did you feel like you belonged somewhere? Like, did you feel that you belonged in Central Florida, or did you feel that more outside while you were moving around?
I think that Central Florida actually has a really like large proportion of different ethnicities around, and I think that it's a little bit easier to celebrate and assimilate uh, like people's differences are celebrated here, especially through programming like FusionFest. It gives space to not only like make room for a culture, but also celebrate it, and I think that that's really unique. And then New York, of course, it's like the melting pot of the world. But I never really felt out of place just because I think I've always felt like there's room for me within my family structure and our culture. Like everyone is a valued member of the tribe, if that makes sense. So no matter what was going around us, like I always felt like I could lean inward, and I think that's really important.
And your work that you submitted to FusionFest in 2019 was a series that was based on your heritage of and the word habiti. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at you speaking Arabic.
I'm trying. But that piece was kind of like a self-portrait, right?
So my work on a whole is centered in power dynamics, and I'm interested kind of in the way power is accessed and how it can be given and taken away, especially in a like a transcultural environment and within a cultural binary. So I think at the time I had really been thinking about the way language is used and how we use it to assert power or take it away. And Habibti is a word that is like the feminine and diminutive form of a word called habibi, which means like my beloved or like my darling. But when you switch it to the feminine sense, at least within the context of my family structure, it's a way to almost like assert power and ownership through the guise of affection. So it's like a really subtle and insidious way of like making someone smaller in a sense. So it's like it's belittling, but like loving, but that can be constricting within itself, even if something is done with the best intentions. And I think power, like language has so much power. It's how we define the world around us and how we're able to communicate. And by, subtly making someone smaller, that can be constraining, and you feel it even if it's in a way that you can't necessarily identify. So I've made these they were self-portraits of these figures that were crunched and contorted and kind of like leaning inward on themselves between the strain, I guess. And that's actually been a jumping off point for my larger body of work. After that, I transitioned into working with animals because I wanted to get out of maybe an overtly the immediate assumptions that someone makes when you see a body. Everyone has their own relationship to gender and race, and when you see a form presented, you're going to pin those things on it. But the animal world, I think it's a little bit more loose, and you can be a bit more, overt. So I did these like painting with dogs and these rabbits, but I've actually begun recently during the pandemic, I started thinking about my family's relationship and my relationship with religion. And as a non-religious person, I still partake in ritual. And I'm trying to negotiate a way that I can partake and uphold history through ritual without having belief behind it. So I've actually circled back to working with the form. But so I'm excited to see where that goes.
Me too. I love that your work has explored many different places, and I saw your work go from the animals, and then you also had like the rugs too. So, and we love to see like a full circle in work and realizing like, okay, this all relates to each other in different forms. And so that was kind of talking about, or you were also talking about like language and the relations with its meanings. Do you speak Arabic and Spanish?
I am kind of ashamed to admit that no, I don't. I did speak a little bit of Spanish when I was younger, but my parents, they wanted us to feel safe and comfortable and be Americanized. And we actually live in a really exciting time now where culture is embraced, and it's a good thing to be able to be proud and open with your culture. But since my dad was an immigrant and my mom, her family was very new here, they both made strides to kind of be able to walk around in a world and feel safe. So they anglicized their names a little bit and tried to present in the racial hegemony at the time. So I feel a little disconnected from my culture actually because I don't fully speak either language. I can understand a bit of Spanish, but it's really like, I'm not fluent. So that is something I would like to work on. And my partner actually is fluent in Spanish, so it's something that we're trying to make happen.
Yeah. Does your name Mär have meaning behind it?
So my full name, which I don't really use often, is Marielle, and there's a sea in Cuba called, it's the Bay of Mariel. So and that's kind of where my dad was from. So they kind of picked that name. And also my parents really liked, I think they were thinking about the name because of Marielle Hemingway, and that's why I have it. I was originally going to be called Cosette from Les Mis, and I'm so glad that they didn't go in that direction. But Mär just suits me better. I feel like it fits kind of my energy, and it's flexible, and I feel like it's a little less tied down to I don't know, the gendered ideas that we associate when we see like an IA name or an LLE name, because that feels very feminine. So
yeah. So outside of developing your body of work, are there any projects or upcoming events that you'd like to share with the audience?
I have, so like you mentioned, I'm currently resident artist at the Maitland Art and History Museum, and I would love for whoever wants to come stop by and do an open studio. I'm currently prepping a body of work for a solo exhibition at Kissimmee Hall called Push Comes to Shove. I have a solo exhibition coming up in 2023 for Art in Chambers, as well as something at the Larmier Art Center in Palatka. And then as far as shows happening this year in a more, sooner, there's the B2022 Biennial. It's the Wiregrass Biennial in Alabama, and that's at the Wiregrass Museum. Clockwork at Dream Clinic Project Space in Ohio. And then I will be resident artist with my partner and a couple other artist friends at JX Farms in Mississippi. And then in the cultural vein, I have a couple of works kind of dealing with ideas of faith and religion and how one can partake in those things. So there's something called the Tzedek Box exhibition happening at the Bernard Heller Museum in New York, and then a show called Genesis in New York, which celebrates artists from within the three Judeo-Christian religions. So it brings together artists that are Jewish, Muslim, and Christian. So it's going to be an interesting connection.
That is really exciting. And I think I've seen you and your partner, Leo, you guys have done Spanish painting classes at Maitland too.
Oh my gosh, yes, please come to that. So we're trying to provide affordable programming for people that are bilingual, because we looked around and we saw kind of a need for, there's such a high population of Hispanic people in Orlando and not as many outlets creatively. So at Maitland, we're going to be offering plein air painting classes in Espanol. So please come. We would love to have you.
That's exciting. Yeah, I've tried to share those when I see them on our Instagram and stuff. So be sure to check them out. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's Diverse Orange. It was amazing having Mär. And tune in next Tuesday at 1 p.m. for our next Diverse Orange. Thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Alex.